Hello everyone, Tom with Capo Fetish. Let's talk about some cool 90s alternative debut albums today. I'm going to start off here with just an incredible album from 1990. I'd say almost a near perfect album. The lead single off this particular album, I remember hearing it for the first time and then it gaining a lot of popularity and airplay. And I just remember it feeling like a breath of fresh air as the 90s started. This is right before the grunge era started. And I'm talking about the Sundays, their debut, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic, along with the hit single, Here's Where the Story Ends. I think some of the finest songs, obviously, are the kind of deep cuts. My absolute favorite on the album is a track. It starts right halfway in the middle of the CD. It's called You're Not the Only One I Know, featuring the gorgeous vocals of Harriet Wheeler. Now, Harriet Wheeler and her husband, David Gavarin, they both wrote all these songs on here. I remember seeing the Sundays back in 1994 at the Ventura Theater in Ventura, California, and it was one of the most sublime shows. I remember some friends of mine, all of us, when we left the theater that night, were just saying, wow, what a vibe. What a vibe they created that night. It was so uplifting and kind of like... kind of ethereal, and Harriet Wheeler just standing there just poised and just so classy and so beautiful. I mean, it was just, and her vocals coming over the system, it was just incredible. And the guitarist too, he was kind of like almost kind of mimicking a little bit of Johnny Marrish kind of vibe with those arpeggios and that chorus pedal. It was just so good. Back to the CD. You're Not the Only One I Know is so incredible. And then I think one of the greatest tracks on here is the second to last track on here called My Finest Hour. It's so joyful and jubilant. And towards the end of the song, on the outro, Harriet Wheeler's doing this scat, this beautiful scat. It just sends a shiver up your spine. I mean, this is just an incredible album here. And I think they did two others after this. They did an album called Blind, and I forgot what the third one was called. But this one is definitely the gem in their discography, and you can't go wrong. The Sundays, Reading, Writing, and Arithmetic from 1990. Another just fabulous debut from 1996 is Fountains of Wayne, their self-titled album. This is a power pop 90s classic here. This is not a bad track on here. Starting with the single, Radiation Vibe. I remember seeing that video and just going, I got to get this album, got to get it as soon as possible. Sink to the Bottom, Joe Ray, She's Got a Problem. Survival Car, Barbara H. ends half the album, Perfect Side, or Perfect Half, should we say, since we're listing CDs. And the reason why we're listing CDs in this 1990s video is because this is how these titles were bought. There were no vinyl albums at this point that were readily available. So I bought everything on CD like most people did. So I think one of my favorite songs on here is Sick Day. It's such a great track. Some of these songs even kind of remind me of Cheap Trick. Like Please Don't Rock Me Tonight. Really reminds me of like that Heaven Tonight, In Color, Dream Police vibe from the Police. I mean, sorry, the Cheap Trick, not the Police, Cheap Trick. Please Don't Rock Me Tonight, Everything's Ruined ends the album. This is just a perfect power pop album. Well-written tracks, incredible melodies, and of everything I've heard of Fountains of Wayne, I think this is, without question, my favorite Fountains of Wayne album. Fountains of Wayne, their self-titled debut from 1996, a perfect album. Here's a band, their name, they came out during the Manchester scene, along with a lot of those other bands like EMF. Remember EMF? You're Unbelievable. Remember that? But these guys were a step above that, and I really love bands that feature Hammond B3 organs, so there's a lot of that in this particular album, and there's those kind of good funky grooves, and I don't know, I just dig it. In the US, they were called the Charlatans UK. In the UK, just the Charlatans. And this is their first album, Some Friendly. This is really, really good. This came out in the early parts of 90, I believe. There's one track on here called The Only One I Know. Got a lot of airplay on K-Rock back in the day. You never hear it even on like satellite stations anymore, like alternative satellite stations. But there's some really, really good ones. There's this long track at 6 minutes and 40 seconds called Opportunity, which I really, really dig. It's kind of like kind of spacey and floating, and the Hammond organ's just laying down this really mellow groove and very hypnotic sounding. The second track on here called White Shirt really has a nice real groove to it. It kind of sounds like Davy Jones is doing the lead vocals on this particular track. I always thought it sounded just like Davy Jones from the Monkees, that particular vocal. Then Polar Bear, Believe You Me, Flower. I give this thing an absolute 4-star. It is such a great debut, and they've put out so many albums since then, and I got to be honest, I haven't really heard much beyond this album, so I need to kind of explore their discography a little more. But the Charlatans, as they are known in the UK, the Charlatans UK, as they are known in the US. Fine debut. Some Friendly from 1990. The debut album from Paul Westerberg from The Replacements, 14 songs, released in 1993. This is a fantastic debut album. Kicking off with Knockin' on Mine, sounds like a Replacements track from like Pleased to Meet Me, or maybe Tim. First Glimmer is a great little like ballad. World Class Fads, another rocker. Runaway Wind. There's a couple of kind of real lo-fi home-made recordings on here, kind of like Westerberg did for the Hootenanny album. That track, I forgot what it's called. I'll get back to that in a second. But tracks like that, lo-fi cassette recordings are featured on here. One called Black Eyed Susan, which is really gorgeous. Really great track. The end of the album ends with a track called Down Love, which is a real kind of party song in the spirit of The Replacements. This is a fine debut from Paul Westerberg. Now, I bought his second album, I bought his third album, and each one I wasn't really thrilled with. The second album had a few tracks I liked, but on the third album, went full-on singer-songwriter mellow. I just couldn't get into that. I think his best stuff was with The Replacements and this particular debut here. I love this album. 14 songs, it's called, from Paul Westerberg from 1993. Well worth getting if you're a Replacements fan or if you're just interested in hearing a fantastic rock and roll record. How about the debut from the Cranberries? It's a really fine album, really solid all the way through. Besides the hits, Dreams and Linger, I really love the deep cuts. I'm a real deep cut kind of guy, and one of them on here really reminds me of Jefferson Airplane, early Jefferson Airplane. It really reminds me of that whole vibe. The song is called Pretty. Reminds me of early Grace Slick and that whole Jefferson Airplane vibe around like Surrealistic Pillow, After Bathing at Baxter's. The whole first half is really strong. Waltzing Back, Not Sorry, and even the second half is very strong too, with songs like Wanted, I Will Always, Put Me Down. I really, really dig this album. I got to be honest too. Once that song, what's it called? Zombie came out, that really turned me off to the Cranberries. I just did not like that song, and probably attributed to hearing it a bazillion times at work on this alt station we had on all day. So that really kind of turned me off to the Cranberries. In fact, I even sold this album. This is one of those prime examples of an album that I purged and rebought, used. But I still love it. The Cranberries debut called Everybody Else Is Doing It, so why can't we? Really, really good stuff. An incredible album. This guy was probably responsible for a lot of falsetto singers, shall we say, in the 90s, or in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, millennium era. I'm talking about Jeff Buckley, his one and only release during his lifetime. This is such an amazing record. I don't know who I like better sometimes, Jeff Buckley or Tim Buckley. I mean, Tim Buckley was a talent all his own. I mean, I think they're equally as talented. You know how there's some of those childhood, like those people that grew up with famous fathers and then tried to make it on their own musically, kind of like Julian Lennon and Ziggy Marley. The music just didn't really, I mean, it didn't even compare to their father's music. But I think this album can stand up to anything by Tim Buckley, without question. And then Tim Buckley was an amazing artist. But I think if this guy continued, if he had lived, he would have put out an amazing array of albums. And who knew what he would have done, really? You know, he could have done any style. But anyway, Mojo Pin, Grace, Last Goodbye, Lilac Wine. One of my favorite tracks on here, So Real. Towards the end of the song, really buried low in the mix, he does this falsetto that he holds out for it seems like about 15 seconds. It just goes on and on. Guy had just the most amazing voice and octave range. When it comes to Hallelujah, written by Leonard Cohen, this is my favorite version without question. It is so haunting and so beautiful, and it's almost church-like. It's like you can't even hear a pin drop at certain points in that song. It's so incredible. Lover You Should Have Come Over is fantastic. Corpus Christi Carol, Eternal Life, and that last track, Dream Brother, is so eerie and so incredible. So yeah, this to me is a 5-star record here, a 5-star debut. You could hear his influence with Tom York from Radiohead. I mean, as soon as like the bends came out, you could hear Tom York doing that falsetto thing. And then on OK Computer, I think he saw Jeff Buckley. I read somewhere or heard somewhere that he saw Jeff Buckley and it just changed his life. You can hear his voice in other artists from the millennium like Coldplay, for better or for worse. They copied his style too, at least the falsetto style, if you listen to that song Yellow. So anyway, Jeff Buckley, fantastic debut. Unfortunately, we lost him in '97 in the Mississippi River. Absolute tragedy. This guy could have really produced some amazing stuff going forward. So Jeff Buckley, Grace, 1994. And if you're really into Buckley, check, and if you ever come across this DVD here, this is Live in Chicago, 1995 at the Metro. This is an incredible live performance here from Jeff Buckley. He does an incredible version of Kangaroo by Big Star, off Big Star Third. He completely like transcends and takes it to another level. He does a version of Kick Out the Jams by the MC5. And then all his originals on here are just incredible. To see this guy live must have just been an amazing experience. But if you see this, you're into Buckley, check it out. Live in Chicago at the Metro, 1995. Great DVD with a couple of extras here. DVD bonuses of him doing acoustic versions of So Real and Last Goodbye. So good stuff. Another great one. I just saw this artist about 1.5 years ago in Tucson with a friend of mine. I saw her do this complete album in its entirety. Liz Phair, Exile in Guyville from 1993. Fantastic record. I remember when this came out, I remember just playing it continually in my car. I had the cassette at the time. All these tracks, 6-1, Help Me Mary, Glory, Dance of the Seven Veils. One of my absolute favorites on here, though, is a song called Explain It to Me. It has this really hypnotic, mellow kind of thing about it. And the melody and kind of the heartbreak about it. It's just an incredible track. You got Fucking Run on here. Girls, 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 Divorce Song, Flower. Just, it's almost like it's a double album, basically. And supposedly it's her response to the Stones' Exile in Main Street. So supposedly song for song. But yeah, just another just great debut here. Liz Phair, very influential for artists like coming up like Alanis Morissette. She would take this all the way to the bank with this kind of style of writing, and so many to follow. So very important record here. Liz Phair, Exile in Guyville, 93. Another great one is the debut from The Laws from 1990. This is their sole and only record they've ever released, renowned for the single There She Goes. An amazing, amazing track, covered by several different artists since. I remember seeing The Laws open for Elvis Costello. I think it was on Costello's All This Useless Beauty or Mighty Like a Rose, one of those early 90s records. And they put on a fantastic show. It was a great opening act for Costello. Another one on here I love is I Can't Sleep, Doldrum. Really, really, really good stuff. Never heard from Lee Mavers again. Explain It to Me what he's been doing these days. Has he put out more albums under his name? Is he doing anything in music? Let me know in the comments section. The Laws, debut from 1990. How about the debut from Sugar, Copper Blue? God, this album rocks. So we have I believe, the first outing from Bob Mould. I don't know if he did a solo album between Husker Du and this, but his first outing was Sugar here. A couple of tracks in here are just they absolutely rock. And I'm talking about Changes. That guitar line is amazing. And then we've got Helpless, another just incredible track. There's some great more like acoustic tracks like If I Can Change Your Mind. Really, really fine debut here from Sugar. Copper Blue from 1992. And then last on the list is probably my favorite debut, even though it's a collection of EPs from this particular band. This particular CD came out in 1990. This is the first release in the US for the band Lush. Lush is known as a shoegaze band, along with other bands like Ride and My Bloody Valentine. This collects their first 3 EPs onto one CD. So this is their official release in the US. Their official debut would have been Spooky 2 years later. But I'm including in this because this is such an amazing album. And if you've never heard this band, you need to hear them. So how would you explain their music? Very ethereal, a lot of loud chorus and flangey guitars, but the 2 main principal songwriters sound like angels. They're harmonizing throughout these songs. They almost sound like they're from another planet. The melodies are incredible, the hooks, the guitar parts. The principal songwriters are Mickey Bereni and Emma Anderson, and they both sing and play guitar. And Mickey's mainly the lead singer, and Emma's the backup vocalist. But the way their vocals blend it's just heavenly against this wall of sound of like chorus pedals and flange. So some of my absolute favorites on here, if you want to check them out online. One is called Thought Forms. I've never heard a song so amazing. Really takes you somewhere. There's 2 versions on here, a slow version and a faster version. The faster version is what I'm talking about. The melody, the guitars, everything about it is just absolute magic. Other tracks like Sweetness and Light, Breeze, Deluxe, got a little bit of airplay on K-Rock back in 1990. That's an incredible track. Pull that one up online. Hey Hey Helen is an ABBA cover, which is really cool. Yeah, I mean, there's just not a bad moment on here. If you like just kind of dream pop, shoegaze, with that kind of, you got to admit, there's a little bit of psychedelia in there too. It's floating around in there with these wall of chorus guitars and flange guitars. It's an amazing mix of just beauty and just magic. What can I say? So Lush, this album is called Gala, Gala, and it collects 3 of their first EPs onto one, basically debut album. So highly recommended. Check it out, Lush, Gala from 1990. What are your favorite 1990s debut alternative albums? Let me know in the comment section. As always, thanks for watching. If you dig the content across the channel, just press subscribe. Cost $0. And we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.